right, welcome to week 3 at Hungaroring. And I have to admit, Jay, I was quite enjoying that new intro video you put together. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, well, let me pull up the standings here while we're waiting for the warm-up lap to start. Pulling up the season standings. Um, any thoughts, Jay, on kind of where the group sits right now?
Uh, no surprise that Aiden Hasbrock's at the front. Some pretty commanding performances up to this point. Um,
Yeah, he's shown tremendous speed since he's entered the league, and this season he's really been putting it all together where things are clicking for him. Sadly, he won't be in this race tonight, so we'll see how much he drops back in the championship.
yeah, yeah. Some other standouts. Tom L. I think he's a newer driver to the league this year. I think
Yep.
up in fourth. Um, Kind of surprised. Mike Bowen down in fifth. Um,
And I think that's
he's
from he only made the first race and wasn't here for the second, so I think that's what kept it down. And unfortunately, like Hasbrock, he won't be in today's race either. He had to miss this week as well.
Wow. Give some other guys a chance to earn some points
That's
and
right, and they'll come clawing back as the the season goes. We're still early in the season, so if they do
exactly.
drop, I don't expect them to stay that way. Well,
I do see that. Oh, sorry,
oh
Mike.
no, go ahead.
I do see that Mike Derringer has actually dropped out of the championship. Unfortunately,
Yeah, that's a shame.
yeah, pretty commanding performance at the last race. Unfortunately, had some difficulties through Maggots and Beckett's, but that was almost a per lap basis thing.
That's
So
right.
I mean, it was
He was not alone there, right?
no, not at all. It was in good company.
Absolutely. Well, and then for today's qualifying order, pull that up on the screen here. First thing that stands out to me on that was I was uh, was attending most of the practices this week, and David Macedo was on top and really dominating this week, and it's exciting to see that actually Alvarez and Maxwell Cerna managed to qualify ahead of Macedo. So that was unexpected, although both of those guys are fast, so not completely unexpected. Any other standouts on the list that you see, Jay?
Um, well, Kyle Macedo,
Yeah,
qualifying up into fourth. But no, a lot like you said, David showed some pretty massive pace around here in some of the practice sessions. Wonder if it was just a 44.6 seems good enough type of situation, because I know he's at least a second faster than that.
yeah. I don't
Um,
know. I don't know if he wasn't quite able to hit what he had hit some at some points in practice. Maybe just couldn't put it together in that time during quali. But it's a tough track to pass on. So the fact that those other two qualified ahead of him, it might be interesting on where things settle because of that. But it's always good when you've got some close competition at the front. It should make for an exciting race up front today.
yeah, and it's always frustrating when you're racing against even a few guys that are not just fast but consistent. Because a track like Hungaroring there's only a couple rock solid passing opportunities, and the rest is just sort of waiting for people to make mistakes. So David might have a bit of a race ahead of him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't doubt it one bit. And they're getting formed up here. Won't be too long, and the race will be starting. You should see the green light. I do like Pedro's new livery. His nice heart. There we go. So get a nice shot as he cruises by.
I don't know. I think personally, I think that should be illegal. It's just too distracting.
To distract. Well, thankfully it's on the side of the car, not the back, right? All right, we're about to go green. Let's see. Turn one here, hard braking, so we'll see if the group can keep it clean.
Yeah, always kind of a tough area. A lot of flashbacks to Monza T1. It's
Oh
just
yeah.
a ton of speed into a really heavy braking zone. Usually is not a good recipe for T1.
Never, never. Yeah, and everyone kind of settled in, single line, no incidents. Everyone's looking good. Oh, and he's thinking about it with Derringer there by by Pedro. And up front, you can see Alvarez is pulled out, little bit out in front. Alvarez is one of those guys that's dangerous when he has open track and just able to hot lap. He could easily start to pull away from the group if he really settles into a rhythm. Macedo's all over the back of Darty right now. He wants that fourth place position back.
Yeah, he's definitely getting a sniff in. Oh,
Oh. And it's gonna put him on the outside here. He is glued to the side of Darty's car there. And the good thing is with that left right, or the right left left, or left right, can't talk. Right left right. That puts Kyle back on the inside of that final turn. There we go.
yeah,
And
it's a pretty good move. Pretty good move coming through there.
It is. And unless Darty, no, he looks like he thought about trying to maybe scare Kyle, but backed out of it smartly. But because of that, it put Pedro and Demler choosing opposite sides of Darty and kind of split them. But that now lets Demler through past Pedro, so Demler moved up into sixth place. Nicely done.
Yeah, and speaking of Demler, it's nice to see the new livery. We unfortunately were missing that for the last race. It was just a carbon fiber car, but now that we've got those updated files, it's a pretty nice looking.
Yeah,
game
sharp livery. I like the color too. I always enjoy the custom liveries. I love when the guys take time to do them. And it lets you kind of learn a little bit about the drivers based on their liveries. I don't know how much more we want to learn about Pedro, but...
Well, I mean... yeah, that's a tough one.
Alright, well, Macedo has climbed back on Alvarez, cut it down to about a half second, so in the beginning, the opening lap, it looked like Alvarez might start walking away from the group, but David Macedo closed that gap, and then keeping pace with the two of them, we got Maxwell Cerna as well, right in the mix there, so these three are very close so far, which is what we wanted to see. Nice close battle with the lead.
Yeah, and speaking of maybe learning a bit too much about people due to their liveries, David Macedo there running the OnlyFans livery.
Yeah, yeah. I hear he races naked, and you can make donations.
I mean, if I could, I would definitely donate, with the stipulation that it go to purchasing some clothing. But yeah, it's pretty exciting to see Cerna up there fighting for third.
Yeah, I've seen he's had a lot of pace this season in practices, and while it hadn't worked out with some instances occurring down the race, and there is Pedro going up the inside of Demler, but Oh, that is unfortunate for Pedro. And made some contact.
Yeah, Pedro just got acquainted with everyone's favorite friend, Mr. Barriar. Yeah, that's rough. Trying to put the move on Demler there and just, I don't know if he got on the throttle too early, but just lost the rear end.
Yeah, the car did not agree with the curb there. And it definitely took some damage. Hard to tell the exact amount, but I guess he did not choose to pit there, so the car must be driving decent enough to stay with it. But you were talking about Cerna. Back to Cerna, Macedo, and Alvarez. Still that close battle up front.
Yeah, it's he's not a guy that I've had a lot of on track time with, Sarna, but he's found some surprising pace, especially this race. We didn't really get to see much from Silverstone. Unfortunately, he and Pedro had a bit of a had a bit of a coming together, and it sort of put a damper on things for both of them. But yeah, I mean, keeping up with Alvarez and Macedo is it's no easy task.
No, it is not, and I don't know what it is about the Honda that suits him, but last season the McLaren, and he was competitive with the McLaren, but since he switched to the Honda, I don't know if it was extra work he put in the off season or just something clicking with the car, but he has come back a whole new driver with this newfound pace that he has.
Yeah, not the NSX is not a car that I've driven all that much. I remember before they updated it, it was kind of a dog. Um, but I mean, it seems to be performing pretty well. I mean, it's first and third right now, so
Yeah, and I know Bowen did not choose to go with the NSX this season, and Bowen not in this race, but he was another competitive or fast driver with that NSX. So there's a few people that know how to use that car, and what really shines is its top speed.
yeah, that's not something you could really ever say about the NSX
Mm-mm.
before the update. It was not fast. It was good on the brakes just
Yeah.
because it was slower and everything. Oh.
Yeah, and I haven't driven it either, Jay. Like you, I drove it back back when early on in the game, before a lot of the different updates, including 1.8, and never tried to give it a chance. But a lot of people seem to like it. It seems like it's one of the more competitive cars on the grid now.
Well, and it's a good thing. I mean, the balance of performance is there for a reason, and it's nice to see. It's nice to see cars that don't get a lot of love, receive some updates and make them a bit more competitive. A lot like the V8 Aston, I think,
Hmm.
recently just got an update.
Love the
Definitely seeing
Aston.
a lot more of those now.
Yeah,
A lot more of those.
and that used to be a popular car. Like a few, I guess we would call metas ago or whatever, the Astons are pretty popular. And then after 1.8, you kind of didn't see them as much. But so you're saying they're now making a comeback, huh?
Yeah, it seems to be. I mean, the few public races I've been in has just been nothing but Lambos and
Well,
Astons.
and Aston is what Bowen went with this season. I
Yeah,
as a former Aston driver, I can say it's one of my favorite cars in the game. Um, I love the way it looks, love the way it sounds, and love that stability that it has.
yeah. The insane amount of downforce the thing generates, even without wing, is just ridiculous. You can get some impressive speeds out of that thing.
Oh yeah, yeah, you can. Yeah, my only issue with it that I heard it got better was it was previously that turbo lag coming out of slow, when you're slow getting on the throttle.
Mm.
It just was really poor acceleration compared to a lot of the other cars. And I heard, I don't think it's one of the best cars now, but I heard it did improve somewhat in that area.
Yeah, I did hear that they did improve the low end acceleration,
Yeah, it was a great.
which
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, no, I was just going to agree with you. It was rough driving that thing, especially if you were not constantly on point with conserving your momentum. That thing was rough.
Well, and then it made it a challenge too when it came to passing, because you're. I think the Aston, if you're able to take all of your lines and stay predictable and stay fluid, you could hot lap a pretty good time. But the second you had to adjust your line or take something different and try to get drive out of a turn to get by somebody, it wasn't a great tool to do that with. Much better to a car that if you're in front and leading the race, just to kind of sail away and put in consistent lap times, but not the best to battle through the field with.
Well, speaking of battle,
Yeah,
this fight between Alvarez and Macedo is getting kind of spicy.
it
That
is.
that NSX does look a little bit dodgy on the rear end, though. I've been noticing some pretty nasty bouncing, especially when it's going over some of those bigger curbs. So let's hope that does not become an issue.
Yeah, the curbs here, especially that chicane that they just passed through, is one of the you know possible dangerous spots of the track. Just a lot of people will spend time setting their car up to be able to kind of hammer those curbs, and if your suspension isn't set up to take it, it can kind of send you going.
Yeah, and it's
Ooh,
also a per vehicle type thing. I mean,
right.
it's always harder to monster curbs in a mid-engine or a rear-engine car than it is something like the Bentley or the Aston.
Merc and yeah, all those front engine rear wheel drive cars are just love eating curbs. And for a second there, it looked like Cerna was starting to drop back into maybe the clutches of Kyle Macedo, but it now looks like maybe Cerna's kind of gained back some ground on Alvarez and Macedo. So he said, "You're not getting away from me yet." Ooh,
Oh,
a little drifty drift.
yikes! Yeah, that's always just a heart in the throat moment when you're chasing somebody and you're right on the edge. You have to pull a quick maneuver like that to sort of stop the thing from going for a ride. And yeah, that's enough to wake you up.
Yeah, that'll get your attention right back.
Yeah, I mean these are hour-long races, so there is a certain amount of getting into a rhythm or sort of not necessarily zoning out, but putting your head down and just lapping the best you can lap, and yeah, that'll snap you out of that real quick.
We got Stefan Buckley currently in 8th place right now.
Yeah, it's still showing Buckley as well. It was showing Buckley as still behind Perez, so it must have been a fairly recent overtake there.
Yeah, I wonder how much that damage is affecting Pedro's car. He did qualify, let's see, with Pedro. His last lap, 146.1, and he qualified with a 145.5. So I don't know if he might be dealing with a little bit of damage slowing him down as well.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's that and the extra fuel, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unless you're some sort of Ubermensch that qualifies on race fuel.
Like David, who qualified with the 144.6 and has already done a 144.5. So.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, it's I mean, whether it's affecting his
Ooh.
car or just affecting his mental state. Just knowing that you have damage sometimes is worse than having damage.
Yeah. And back a little bit, I saw that Pedro had, or not Pedro, Alvarez had went off track a little bit, and I was going to say, oh, we've got Buckley's got a good bit of damage. Let's see what happened here and
Yeah.
the chicane you were talking about.
Yeah, that looks. So it didn't look like he hit the turtleback or the big part of the curb. It looks like maybe just too hard onto the brakes, onto the painted part, and the
Yeah,
rear just went.
think you absolutely called it. That's
Yeah, that. I mean, even though these are, I mean, I think these are serrated curbs here. They are painted, so I mean, they're not quite as grippy as the track. So heavy braking, especially on a curb like that, it's always a risk. Boy, and David's just real anxious to get past Eric here.
I'm sure he
He's
would love to, especially if he thinks he has faster pace. I know he'd love to get by and start stretching out a lead in front, and I'm sure he's worried too, seeing that Maxwell Cern has made it back onto his bumper. So Maxwell said, "No, you two aren't getting away from me. I'm still here for the fight."
yeah, and this is where if I were Eric, I'd be trying to hold David up just a little bit, just to get him back in range of the guys behind him and sort of get him a bit more worried about them instead of trying to get past.
Yeah, that's a good tactic. Oh
Yeah. Oh,
no!
yeah. Oh,
Thankfully, avoided the damage that Buckley had taken, but um, oh, that's unfortunate because he was right there with the guys. We'll watch this from David's cam.
yeah. And it's that stiff rear suspension on that NSX, just not very forgiving.
Yeah, once it gets that bounce, it just
Yeah, it's
it's
gone.
almost catapults it, right? It's just kind of.
Yeah, there's really nothing you can do. There's so much weight in the rear end. I mean, we've seen that a little bit with Alvarez. I don't know if he's maybe just got this suspension set up a bit differently or what, but he seems like he's been able to keep it between the lines, which is, when you're fighting a car that's too stiff going over a curb, it's no easy feat.
Yeah, well, so with Cerna dropping back, that puts Macedo into Kyle Macedo now into third place. So we've got the brothers and David in second, Kyle in third. I'm sure they'd love to make it a 1-2 finish, right?
I don't know. I mean, I personally don't have any siblings, but I've definitely witnessed um, some sibling rivalries that are very much, if I can't have it, neither can you. So maybe maybe this is one of those times where it would be best to back him up into Kyle and just let those two slug it out.
Yeah, and Macedo he's right there with Alvarez, so he's I don't think Alvarez is going to have a chance at shaking him. It's going to be, can he prevent an opening that Macedo can take advantage of? Ooh, it's a little
Yeah, at
higher
this
in
point,
the.
it's really all about just parking it on the apexes and sort of giving the guy behind you the making him take the passing opportunities that aren't going to do him any good. Um, if you know a particular corner is better on the outside than the inside, giving him the line that's going to set him up for the more difficult opportunity. It's uh it's a bit of strategy. I mean, when you're in a fight like this, it's sometimes kind of hard to think that far ahead. But if you can if you can manage it, it's definitely it's just another tool in the chest, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I guess another hard part is that it's so early in the race and he's already having to think like that, where it's going to be a long time. We'll have to keep putting that on.
Well, I am noticing a little bit that
Oh,
David does seem to be.
we
Oh,
have a drive-through penalty for
oh
Alvarez. So
no!
yeah, and I think there's going to be a good view of it on TV one. Should give us one. Yeah, right there. That was it. He had the two lefts um, over on the outside of that red striping. So that was the culprit. And it means this must have been his fourth occurrence because you get four before you get the drive through. So
Yeah, it's this track is so easy for track limits, though.
oh,
I mean,
you're not kidding.
yeah, if you're pushing even just a little bit too hard through some of these corners, it is absolutely unforgiving. This one right here is my personal um, the bane of my existence when it comes to this track.
And as we're talking about curbs and off limits, there's Serta again, and I think it
And that
was
looks like the
different
chicane again.
spot, but the chicane, yeah. And it looks like what happened to the same thing that
To
happened to Buckley,
Buckley.
Stephon
Yeah.
Buckley. Unfortunate for Serna here. He had such great pace.
Well, I
That's
mean, it
heartbreaking.
doesn't look like there's that much damage, so hopefully it's not going to be that costly to fix. I mean, it is a mandatory pit stop here, so
Yeah, it looks like Buckley's retired from the race after his. So hopefully Cerna's able to, if he has to pit, he pits and goes on because there's still a lot of valuable points you can get this race. Um, Taking up 12th, we didn't highlight this in the beginning, but Francisco actually missed. He was here at the start of the race, but there was a technical issue. He wasn't able to hit drive and had to start from the pits. So he started about 30 seconds down from Joe Marsiglia, and it looks like he has worked his way somewhat close in that gap. And Francisco, again, one of our newer drivers this season, so we're excited to have him racing with us.
yeah, you juxtapose that with Marsiglia, a guy who's been with us for a while. We don't get to see Joe all that often. He's he's a busy man. So it's cool to see that he's actually here uh, a little bit this season at least.
Yeah. This was the first race he was able to make. He had the ability to join. He was talking to me. Um, Looks like he's going to get some damage fixed. But he was telling me how much he really missed racing. He watched the first two broadcasts of race one and race two, and was saying it helped get him motivated to make it so that he could get some free time to race tonight. So excited to
Cool.
have him back with us. I'm
And
actually
oh,
getting.
sorry, go
Oh, I
ahead.
was gonna say I'm getting word that I can't pull it up on the screen here, but Joe's brakes are dragging. It looks like he's having a hardware issue, and the brakes are sitting at about 10%. It looks like it's been that way through the whole race, maybe even qualifying. So uh, that's probably contributes to where he's at right now in 11th, and now back down to 12th after Francisco passed. That's unfortunate for him.
So watching Joe come into the pits there, it looked like he had a moment with his limiter and almost got nailed for speeding through the pits there. So that's that's one time when you do want your brakes to be dragging a little bit.
Ooh, and I can't believe I missed this, but Macedo has gotten by Alvarez. So we know Alvarez had the drive-through, but I don't think he had served it yet when this happened. Oh, it looks like, yeah, off track. Although, if you're not entering the chicane the way you want to hammer those curbs, that's probably the best thing to do, so you just avoid spinning out.
Yeah, and it was good to see Eric not just immediately start defending again and just let David pass. I mean, he's got to drive through to serve, so he might as well, just take her easy and.
Yeah, that's the right mentality. Because even with the drive-through, if he goes and serves, it gets back on track. He'd still probably come back and be middle of the pack, and be able to battle his way up somewhat and probably gain a few more positions before the end of the race. Just given how fast he is. So.
Yeah, I mean, and then you've got the mandatory pit stop, which is, I think, just another mandatory 30 seconds that he's going to have to take. So, I mean, yeah, it's going to be a rough one for Eric. I mean, being that fast and being in that fight, and then all of a sudden having to serve that's got to be a bit deflating.
It does. It does. The one thing I like about Alvarez is that I've seen it in other races last season is he's been involved in incidents or something happens where he loses control, car takes damage, where a lot of guys will just park and give up, and he's one of those that'll fight on, and he's real resilient. He doesn't throw in the towel very easily. So.
Well, that's always a really good mentality to have. I mean, even if you're not winning, you're still learning. So.
Yeah, plus the way I look at it too is, there's still points and Kyle's off the track, and
wow,
that's
that
gonna
looks like
let Doherty through. Let's ride on board and even see.
Yeah, you might have just got the left-hand tires off the track just a little bit going into that turn.
Yeah.
Hit the brake.
You want to set yourself up to be wide there, but not quite that wide. So yeah, I think that's what happened.
Just lost the rear end there.
Yeah. Well, I was just about to say too. I mean, he still does, but Kyle's looked really good this race, and he definitely appears to have better pace than Doherty. So I wouldn't doubt that there will probably be another shot at him putting pressure on Doherty and likely getting even back in front. And Pedro has made it back up, so I don't know. Let's see. Did he fix the car? No, he's still rocking. Still rocking a little bit of that damage, but he has made his way up into 6th place.
Yeah, and I mean, if you can pull it off, I mean, that's definitely the best choice. A 30-second pit stop to fix, maybe 10 seconds of damage, or pit twice. It's always going to be try to do it all at once. That's going to be. Oh, and Alvarez looks like he's got to stop-go.
Oh,
I think
no.
He just sped in the pits. Oh,
he went to serve his drive-through and then got a stop and go. I don't know if it was either entering or leaving, but got the stop and go. That's devastating. So, when I was talking before about Alvarez and his resiliency, this is going to be his chance to really prove it.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah, that's rough.
That is, and another Honda driver. We were talking about Hondas earlier in the race, is Nick Driveman, and he's been, I think, with the Honda now. This is his second season using it, I believe. I might be
Yeah.
mistaken.
No, he picked that up last season. Um, there were talks, much like Andre Marcheshin and Mike Doherty running the Nissans. There was talk that he and I were going to do the Hondas, but unfortunately, I was not able to participate much at all last season. So
Oh, I'd have loved to see the both of you in the Honda. That would have been a lot of fun. And I love that marble livery of his. Nice throwback livery to the days when cigarette companies could put their logo on racecraft. And we're at the point now, 27 minutes. So the pits opened about 7 minutes ago. So you can see some of the running order. Francisco's showing up in ninth right now, but it's likely we have some of the people have already pitted, like Demler and Cerna. So we're going to see things shuffle up a bit as the guys go in for their pit stops, and then at about the 40-minute mark, things will settle back into the position. Yeah, Pedro is right all over Miller. I don't know if it's that he's kind of equal pace. I haven't seen him have a chance to try to attack yet, or if it's just the track not giving him the opportunity.
you know, that's the thing is, I mean, regardless, he is dealing with a little bit of front aero damage, so probably not cornering as well as he'd like. The Lambo is definitely a bit faster than it used to be, so he's probably going to catch Taylor on the straights. But yeah, it's going to be rough seeing how this track is mostly just non-stop direction changes. Those front tires are probably going to be screaming by the time he pits.
Yeah.
Yeah, anytime you lose even a little bit of front downforce, you start scrubbing the tires so much. The car doesn't feel like it wants to turn, so then you're cranking the wheel harder and
putting more heat in them.
Graining your tires even more and getting them even hotter, and they want to turn even less. And it's just if you're not paying attention, if you're too focused, you'll end up with just rims on the front by the time you pit.
Yeah, definitely how things keep going from bad to worse in that scenario. Looks like Taylor keeping that gap, but it's not pulling away a little bit more. And Taylor, that's another driver that's just looked great this season. He's, I think we were talking about it before, we're not in this broadcast, but we were talking before that, Taylor did have the fifth place in the race, but then had the penalties that took him back because of that contact. But he drove. He was fifth place as far as his driving goes, right? Like he was. Mm-hmm. He had a great race last race, aside from that early incident. And he's up in fourth this race, so just love what we're seeing from Scott Taylor this season.
Yeah, and he's been with that Ferrari, I think, since he joined the league. So I mean, it's good to see the sticking to it finally starting to pay some dividends. Yeah, Scott's a guy that I'm happy to see making it up into the top part of the grid.
Yeah,
It's good to see it happen to a good guy like Scott.
yeah, me as well. And he's one of those guys that puts the work in. He's in practice week after week. Great guy to drive with. So yeah, one of those people you always kind of cheer on. Love to see them bettering themselves and having
Oh,
it show on track. Did
sorry to interrupt.
oh
It looks like Kyle's got to drive through now too.
he did. Wonder if we can catch where it happened. Was it here to the no?
No, I do believe it's this right here.
Oh yeah, both the
Yeah,
right tires to the left of that red striping. So yeah,
yeah.
this track you were talking about it earlier, just how hard it is with these track limits, and um, you know the difficult thing is, as we saw, it's not just one turn where there's a dangerous spot. There's about 3 spots here. He's going in to take his drive through right now. It looks like. But there's like about 3 spots I can think of that are areas that it's very easy to get track limits here. So instead of like some tracks where you're just focusing on this one turn you have to be careful with, like Spa has a one or two that you have to always kind of be mindful of. This track, there's multiple you really got to keep your focus on.
Yeah. So some of the most punishing tracks for track limits, I think, are here, Hungaroring, and also COTA, Circuit of the Americas. That place is the white line. Literally, is the white line. That is track limits, and if you try to take liberties like you can do at most tracks, it's not gonna end well. But yeah, there's this section that Escobar is going through right now. There are 2 corners in quick succession they're deceptive. They're much longer, and um, one of them's a decreasing radius, and the other's just sort of not quite blind, but it sneaks up on you. It's super hard to get your bearings through that part of the track. At least I find.
Yeah, I think this track has quite a number of turns that are uh, a little bit different, where they're not the kind of turns where you're just able to, slam the brakes, damn near 100%, hold them, turn into the apex and go. You have a lot of kind of funky apex turns and trail braking turns where you're kind of on the brake, trailing a little bit, then maybe off and back on the brakes, or, um, coming up after this, maybe a dab here, and then to the left. But this braking zone I always find to be a difficult one to try to. You kind of start to lose a lot of the front end there when you're heavy on the brakes.
Yeah, I tend to run my biases a little farther back. It's not the best for stopping distances, but it does help rotate the cars. So my my problem is usually the opposite of that. It's not so much losing the front end; it's having the rear end want to come around on you, and that's a corner where if I happen to be a little bit too aggressive on the brakes, does not end well.
Kind of looking back through the field here, see Cerna currently 9th, 2 seconds behind Pedro, so he's going to be trying to reel him in and try to recover whatever positions he can.
And I caught a glimpse of the front of Pedro's car. It looks like he did end up getting that damage fixed. So
Good at Pedro. Yep, nice and new. Yeah, so he felt it was worth staying in when he had to do his mandatory pit, spending that little extra time there to get the damage fixed, and we'll see if that helps him get back into the 145s at all. I think that's where.
Looked like
Yeah,
146.1 was
146.1. So
his
he's
fastest in the race.
yeah, so getting a little bit closer. I don't know how long ago he pitted and had it done.
Oh, that corner is just so scary.
Yeah.
It does not matter how many times I've raced this track, that corner always freaks me out.
Yeah, it reminds me of kind of you're turning left versus right, but that it's like that blind right at Brands Hatch. But the only difference at Brands when you're going through that blind right is you have the grass if you miss it. At least here you've got a lot of off track pavement.
Yeah, the whole back section of Brands is just terror-inducing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it's one of those tracks that you can do well the whole race and just have one bad lap there, and it can really ruin you.
Yeah, and the walls are definitely closer. It feels like,
Mm-hmm.
at least at that back section of that track. I mean, there's almost no room on the right. I mean, I do believe the next race is Paul Ricard. So, I mean,
Ooh.
there really shouldn't be any worries about barriers or walls there. I mean, that place has got to be one of the most runoff heavy tracks I've ever seen.
Yeah, you've really got to work to hit something there, huh? you you got to be trying.
Yeah, you got to try real hard.
Oh, and there goes Cerna for the pass. It almost maybe even Pedro might have knew he had the better pace and let him through there even.
Yeah, that definitely looked like a.
Oh, that wasn't. Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry. It is Pedro for. Yeah, yeah. He had a bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, not required, but I mean, I guess if Pedro feels that Max is faster and he doesn't want to hold him up, then definitely the sportsmanlike and as strange it is gentlemanly thing to do.
Well, I think there's some good uh, strategy to it too, where if you know the guy's got a lot more pace than you, not just a little, but he's definitely faster than you by a good margin. To hold him up, you're just delaying the inevitable, and at least if you let him through, you can kind of follow him. Hope he gets to that next car that you have similar pace with. So, like in this case, Taylor, who's up in fifth, maybe helps bring him up to Taylor, and then at that point, maybe gets held up a little bit while he passes, and then gives a chance for Pedro to be right behind Taylor. So we'll see how it plays out, but I can understand why you sometimes would do something like that, but and got Taylor.
So it looks like Taylor got past Demler. No, it looks like Kyle lost position to Demler.
I wonder
Because
if
Demler's up in third now.
it is showing Dimmler in third. It may have
Yeah,
been
just
from
up
when
there.
they pitted. I think it looks like Kyle recently came out of the pits. He had we're at the 39 mark, and I see Kyle had pitted at the 38 mark. So this must have been the lap that Kyle came out of the pits. Dimmler must have got through at that point. But now that means that we're at the 40-minute mark of the race, so everybody should have pitted by now. So the standings reflect where everyone's at. Everyone had taken their mandatory pit. So Demler up in third. That's awesome. Great for Demler.
Yeah, after a pretty rough finish to last race, Demler's got to be pretty happy. I do believe it was he and Tom L were in a pretty heated battle, and Demler just kind of looped it coming through a corner. And
Oh,
yes, speaking of looping it coming through a corner.
I was wondering what happened. I saw Cerna was no longer in front of Pedro.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit too much curb.
Yep, time to go chase down Pedro again.
Yeah, the Honda strikes again.
Yep. Alright, well, at this point in the race, David's got a nice, strong lead. I don't think he has anyone to worry about but himself at this point.
Well, we've seen the... it's not necessarily the other people on the track you got to worry about. It's the track itself. This race with track limits and pit lane infringements. So hopefully, David can sort of keep her between the lines and not incur the wrath of the stewards. Because that would be just gutting to be that far ahead and have to serve a drive-through.
Yeah, because you can see there's Daugherty on the other side of that hairpin, so he's gotten, it shows 12-second lead. So a stop and go or a drive-through would definitely change that. So he's
Yeah, it did put him at least 10 seconds behind Daugherty if he had to come in for one. So a drive-through, that is. Stop and go, I mean, who knows? Probably fifth. Yeah, despite the way things have kind of panned out for Max this race, I mean, 7th place is that's nothing to scoff at, you know.
Oh, I agree. If I could have what happened to him happen to me and still get 7th, I would be thrilled with that. And he might even be able to reel Pedro back in. We'll have to see. And Scott showing 2 seconds down from Kyle Macedo. So Scott up in 5th, which I'm sure he's loving being in 5th place, but would love even more if he could make it up to 4th. What a great race for Scott. Just doing an excellent job here. We've seen a lot of people make mistakes, drive-throughs, or chicane errors, and Scott's just been Mr. Reliability.
Well, yeah, and that's sort of the best thing to be. I mean, you can pull 143s all you want. If you can't keep the damn car on the track, then I mean it's not really gonna help you. I mean, if you can put in consistent, reliably, I mean, even 145s, 146s, if you can keep the thing on the track and just capitalize on everyone else's mistakes, I mean, sometimes it feels like cheating because I'm not faster than this guy in front of me. There's no way I'm going to catch him. But when he's having a meeting with the wall, it doesn't really matter how fast he is.
And that's why we have races, not just qualifying, right? It's you
Exactly.
just being the fastest. That'll get you at the top in quali, but it doesn't get you on the podium for the race.
Yeah, and if I know Scott, he's probably trying his hardest not to pay attention to that big 5 next to his name on the
Yeah,
relative there.
that's right. That's right. Yeah, Joe's still sticking with it. So even with the brake drag, I don't even know what those rear brake temps would look like. But yeah, he's keeping it on, still going, and not just didn't just pull over and park it. So it's great to see. But yeah, you can see his best's a 148. So
Yeah.
he's nowhere near. He's definitely like easily a second or a second and a half off at the worst that he'd normally do here. So it's
Yeah, and it does still does look like that car's got a bit of damage. I don't know if that's been incurred over the entire race and he just didn't fix it, or if that's just a result of the brakes dragging through corners or what. But yeah, I mean he's definitely fighting an uphill battle at the moment.
yeah, another battle here. We've got Miller, who's right behind Driveman.
Yeah, speaking of another guy that's sort of picked a car and stuck with it, I think this is the second season that Evan Miller has been with that Audi.
He has since the the start of the season after it had came out. He's went to that car and is stuck with it.
Well, it seems to be working for him. I mean, uh, just can't, just could not get it to stick through that corner.
And Demler third place. Kyle Kyle at 2.5.
Oh,
Oh, same thing that Kyle did earlier. Now happened to Demler, just a little bit too far. Oh.
just
Okay, say
about
yeah.
one around again.
Let's see, but yeah, it looks like I think the
Just a little bit too much throttle coming out of that corner, I think, for both of
yeah
them.
does the right thing, waits for Kyle to go by before he rejoins. So good to see that. Well, unfortunate, but
Yeah,
thankfully just no damage. Got right back on. Only lost the one position. So fourth
yeah,
place is still good.
he's got to be having flashbacks of last race too,
Hmm.
chasing Tom and just just breaking loose on the rear end. And
Oh, I didn't know a BMW could even drive that loose. That was that was crazy last week with Demler and that car just sliding everywhere.
yeah, I mean, despite how wide the thing is, it's got just torque for days. I mean, low end, high end, it doesn't really seem to matter where you hit the gas. There is just immediate power in this thing, and depending on how low he's running his traction control, I mean, that's not always a good thing. That is such a huge car. That 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 Beamer is just massive.
It's funny because when you look at it, like it doesn't feel big when you're driving it, but then when you see it kind of parked next to another car, you realize its size. But it doesn't drive like a big car at all. I think it feels pretty nimble and um, it just doesn't feel like a boat at all. Is
Yeah,
it
you
bigger
just
than the previous BMW?
Oh yeah, it's massive.
So
I
yeah,
mean,
wow.
so I think, and I could just be talking on my ass here,
Nah,
but
feel free.
I think all these cars have a mandated maximum tire size, inches wise. So I think all these cars run roughly the same size tires, not necessarily width and all that stuff, but and if you pay attention, those tires on that Beamer look like pie pan wheels. I mean, that's how big that car is. They just look tiny on that thing.
It's funny because yeah, when you're behind the wheel, it does not feel like a big car at all. And yeah,
And it's funny
Alvarez
because
all over Driveman here, trying to
oh yeah,
figure
yeah.
out. He's like, I'll get around you off track, around track.
Yeah, he's got to be careful though. I
He
mean, he's already
does.
he's already had to serve one drive-through, and the last thing you want to do is have to go through that again.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. He's gonna go around the outside, which isn't normally. Oh yeah, that puts him on the inside for the next one. So he got by him. Great job.
Yeah, that's definitely a place where the outside is preferable if you can hang it.
And so good for Alvarez too. You know, didn't quit the race like we said. He always shows good resilience. Up into ninth. He's got about 10 minutes left in the race, so there's a good shot that he has to get that he might be able to get by Miller, climb up into eighth. Um, you know that's a great recovery from having everything that happened to him.
Yeah, I mean, he's fast though, so I wonder if he's maybe going to be looking around near Cerner or Perez by the end here.
And David just continuing to stretch his lead out. He was showing 16 seconds ahead of Doherty, so it does not look like he's slowing down.
Well, I mean, but that is kind of the point of racing, though. You don't really want to do that. You're doing it wrong if that's what you're doing.
Sure you do. We want to see a close battle at the front.
Yeah, I mean, it's always fun
For
to
the
see more.
broadcast.
It's always fun to see more people fighting for the top positions. But I mean,
I'll tell you what.
I've always.
Why don't we stay
Oh,
with
sorry.
Macedo, and I'll let if you want to do a kind of a lap walkthrough. We'll have Macedo starting his next lap right now.
Yeah, sure. So coming onto the main straight here, obviously it's going to be flat. Coming down here into T1, you want to pay attention to the little marker right there. Brake hard down into T1. Just kind of clip the apex, run out as wide as you possibly can. Coming in here, want to be to the right. Brake roughly near the red and white curbing there. You can either take this corner as a single or a double apex. This you want to try flat if you possibly can. Careful not to get track limits on that asphalt roof there. This is a blind left, and I hate this corner. Really easy to get track limits there too. Hard, down a couple gears, sort of run out wide. Here comes the chicane. Brake relatively at the start of the curbing there and take as much on both of these.
Beautifully done through that.
Yeah. You want to try to ride the curb here, not too much. And this is one of those corners that just catches you out. It just feels like this corner goes on forever. Left here, clip the curbing, not too much. And this is another curb where it just goes forever. It feels like it takes forever to get around there. So hard down into probably second through here. As wide as you possibly can. And this is another one where you can either ride the white line or do a double apex. And then hard down a gear, maybe, sometimes, depends. And then back on the throttle. run it wide, and then back across the line.
There's our lap at Hungaroring. Thank you, Jay. Great job as always.
Yeah, no problem.
Always appreciate those. Well, we're at about 7 minutes left in the race. At this point, Taylor on Demler is our closest battle out on track.
Yeah. So you can be sure that Demler knows that Taylor's coming, and if I were Scott right now, I would be chanting my mantra, which is "Don't screw up, don't screw up." That rarely ever works. But yeah, just not taking any sort of unnecessary risks here for Taylor, I think, would be the best bet. I mean, there's always the impulse to try to get that last position, but it's not worth it if it's going to cost you possibly a race. So just hang back, and if Demler makes a mistake, try to capitalize on it. I mean, if you have an opportunity and it's not a Hail Mary, then give it a try.
Go
but just
for it, right? Yeah.
you just be smart about it.
No, you're good advice. I couldn't agree more. Especially Taylor up in 5th place. That's a great finish. We're running a championship here, right? So all the points count to your season, and being able to pocket a 5th place finish is going to help him in the standings. And that difference between 5th and 4th is negligible compared to if you risk something and drop all the way back to 10th or something from trying to push something and getting into an incident. So
exactly, and I mean that's what we saw from Moda the last couple of races was, instead of just going full send and possibly just absolutely screwing the pooch at the end of a race, just take that 3rd, take that 2nd. Get the points. Guys don't show up. You never know where you're gonna be, 2 weeks down the road.
Yeah, absolutely right. And Moda's another driver wasn't able to make tonight's race, so he will be back next week for Paul Ricard.
Yeah, Paul Ricard. It's a track. Personally, I like it a lot. It gets a lot of shtick for being boring or too technical, but I mean, I don't know. I guess I've just got a thing for technical tracks, but I can hear the groans now. Everyone collectively lamenting that Paul Ricard's next on the agenda.
So I'm with you, Jay. Opposed to a lot of other people, just like yourself, I enjoy Paul Ricard. I hate the way it looks. I think its character comes from its oddness,
it's a bit seizure-inducing with all the colors.
But if you took all that extra track that they have and striping and just put grass or whatever normal tracks have, the actual track itself, I think it's a fun track to race on, and the straightaway I think is so much fun because it's one of the only tracks on the calendar that you really have a chance to draft somebody and really get by them, because that straight just goes on forever, and you can get behind a car, and as long as you start behind them on that straight, you can usually get around them because of being able to draft behind them, and it just makes it a lot of fun.
There's only a couple other tracks on the roster that do that. Bathurst, Spa. I mean, even Monza's front straight. I mean, it's not quite It's not quite as epic as the 40-mile-long straight at Paul Ricard, but
Just goes forever and ever.
yeah, I mean it's nice because they don't have the chicane like they do on the F1 GP layout. I mean, a lot of people complain that it's just one of those tracks where you put your foot to the floor and take a nap, but I don't know. I think it's a fun track.
No, I agree. And the rest of the track, you're definitely not just putting your foot to the floor and taking a nap. There's a lot of, as you alluded to before, technical sections, and the fun part of that straightaway is not only do you get a nice little break, is I just love the passing opportunities it sets up, and it makes it so you have a chance of getting past every lap that a guy's right on you.
Mm-hmm.
I think when we raced it, I forget which season it was. It might have been 2 seasons ago. I think that we raced it. Might have been um, when it was last on the calendar. But I remember that track. It was there. It was one of the most passing races that I remember being in. But there was just so many position changes. All right, so we are, believe Macedo on the last lap. So it looks like Taylor, he's maintained that gap, but just hasn't really closed in. I think you're right, just playing it safe, taking that, pocket that 5th place. No need to risk anything. So I believe this should be David's last lap, and when he crosses, he will be his 2nd win. He won in season 1 the last time this was on the calendar, and here, season 5, David takes another win. The king of Hungaroring, David Macedo.
Yeah, I suppose there are worse things to be king of. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm gonna vote to have this track banned from the
Oh yeah, you'll have
from the circulation. Yeah.
I've from talking to, I think both the Macedos are like this track. So Darty, 2nd place. Kyle's gonna be crossing in 3rd, and I'll pull up the graphic here with the rest of everyone's finishing positions. But yeah, great racing. Not as much passing, but we kind of expected that, right? We had talked about the fact that it's a little bit tougher of a track to pass on, a little bit less action. I think most of the passing did come from mistakes that people had made.
Yeah, and that's that's completely understandable. I mean, there's only 2 guaranteed good passing opportunities on this track, and those are both straights. So,
Yep.
Even though this is, a relatively, I mean, it's not super wide, but I mean, there is enough room to sort of go 2 or 3 wide through a lot of these corners. It's just not optimal. So yeah, I mean, it does tend to be a track where even if you are about a half a second to a second faster than the person you're racing, there's really not much room to get through.
No, there's not. Well, I want to do something different this week we haven't done before, but I'd like us to do our picks for a driver of the day. I will let you give your pick first. We did see some great effort from some of these drivers today. So who would you pick as your driver of the day, Jay?
Well, so the popular pick's always the guy that wins. But I mean, I've seen some pretty good performances out of David. It's not that I expect it, but I kind of do. So I think I'm going to go with. So I've got a couple picks. So Cerna, for his qualifying, 3rd place start, managed to hang with the leaders there for a while. And then Taylor. So Scott's the kind of driver that you really like to see good things happen to him. So, I mean, if you're going to twist my arm, I'd probably have to go with Taylor. It's really great to see him this far up the grid, and I really hope to see more of that. I mean, no pressure, Scott, but
Yeah, and he got now he got the 5th place, and he'll get to keep it this time. We didn't see any penalties, so great pick. I think for me it's a tough choice. Like you said, you named a few of the ones that I would have picked as well. A couple of the ones I would have picked as well. Also to come to mind, Kyle on the list. I think he's had some rough races and things happen as of late, but this race comes out even with the challenge of getting that drive through. And the off track still pulls out 3rd place, so I think that was one of the ones. But at the end, I know it's the obvious choice, like you said, but I'm gonna have to go and give David Macedo my driver of the pick day. It dominated all week in practice. Come to the race start, I really expected he was gonna qualify first and just run away with this, and he didn't. He had to show his consistency and resolve and went from 3rd up into 1st, even if it was because of the driver's mistakes. At the end of the day, David didn't make any, so I'm going to give David my driver of the day. But great job to everyone today.
yeah, definitely deserving of it. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like like all hipstery, Well, I liked David before he was fast, but but no, I mean, he always.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely a good pick. I mean, and I agree. David did a good job. I'm just in an effort to not sound like I've been paid off by Scott to talk him up. I'm super excited to see Scott so far up.
Yeah, me as well. I agree. Well, I think that's it for today's broadcast. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to say before we signed off.
No, I think we pretty much covered everything.
And for anyone out there watching that wants to race with us, we race Saturday nights, 9:30 Eastern time is our championship races, 1-hour races with mandatory pit with tire change. There is still openings, so even though the season started, we've got plenty of slots if you want to join and jump in the rest of this season and then keep following us for the next one. Our Discord link is in the video description. So thanks for watching, everyone. Jay, thank you again for joining me for another broadcast.
Well, thanks for having me.
All right, bye everyone.